It's common knowledge that the wand chooses the wizard. But have you ever wondered why? There was actually a time when we didn't need a wand to perform the most basic of magical spells. We lived in harmony with the trees that are now used for wand making. Magic flowed through them, and with the right training, witches and wizards could tap into the energy that surrounded them. There were those who were not able to tap into this magic. They were deaf to the trees' calls. Sometimes it was the faintest of whispers. But unless you can understand what the trees were saying, you can access this magic. Magic was about respect and understanding. There was a woman who could only hear whispers, but was helpful to the community. Not only could she hear the whispers from the trees, but she could hear the whispers that emanated from magical folk. She could tell if a person had magic, whether they were Muggle-born or not. So it was entrusted to her to discover magical children, especially if they came from non-magical households. Those children were especially at risk. Their parents would sometimes fear them, try to snuff out their magic, or the children themselves would try to make themselves be normal. Sometimes the whole town would turn against them. It usually didn't take long for a whole town to start hunting other magical folk. So she would seek out the children. She felt it was her duty to protect them. When she found them, she would alert the elders of her community so they would get the proper training. Because of this skill, it was enough that she couldn't perform magic, or so she thought. As the years went by, more and more often, she would hear the whispers too late. She would arrive as the children were being attacked. For a while, the reasoning with the attackers was enough. She could spirit the children away before things got out of hand, until one day, reasoning wasn't enough, and she was alone. She had no magical ability to defend them with, and as a result, a child died. No one could console her. In her grief, she stormed into the woods. She screamed at the trees, "How could you? How can you not help me? Why am I not hearing them?" The trees in the wood were silent. In her rage, she snapped off a branch. Screaming filled her ears loud and clear. Then silence. She looked down and saw the branch in her hand was sparking at one end. "Mrs. Norris, what have you done?" She turned around and one of her elders stood before her. "Madam Ollivander, I don't know. I was so angry and they wouldn't answer me. I don't know what happened. But they did answer you. You didn't hear them not because you couldn't understand, but because you wouldn't. Your frustrations had made you increasingly deaf to them, and that's what they were trying to tell you. You made them your enemy." "I didn't!" "You did. They're not our enemy, but they're also no longer our friend. The trust is no longer there." "What do you mean?" "I can no longer hear them." Mrs. Norris stood there stunned. An elder who couldn't hear the trees? That is unthinkable. The elder walked toward her and took the branch out of her hand. The branch lit up in beautiful purple and gold colors. "I wonder," she whispered. She gave the branch a little wave, and a little rainbow flew out from the tip. "It seems magic is still possible, but this must be studied. Come, Mrs. Norris, much must be done, and people must be told what has happened." Shame reddened Mrs. Norris's face. Slowly the news and panic had spread through the magical community. Madame Ollivander had faith that some trust could be built again with the trees. But Mrs. Norris was too ashamed. One day she found her way back into the wood. "I'm so sorry. All I ever wanted was to protect the children. That's all I ever wanted to do." Some time later, Madame Ollivander went into the wood to look for Mrs. Norris. She had grown concerned for her. When she arrived, Mrs. Norris was nowhere to be found. All she could find was a cat. Mrs. Norris was never seen again. Madame Ollivander was able to discover that wands could be made from the trees. However, the wand would only work if it chose you. And that's why you don't own your wand. It's always been, and always will be, a partnership between you and your wand.